Hello, everybody. Welcome to Elite Weather Forecasting. I am your meteorology. My name is Dooley Godot, also known as Mr. G. Most of you know me as Mr. G on this channel, and I am a meteorology student studying meteorology at Mississippi State University. And I'm going to be here with you tonight as we come into the midpoint of our work week. It's Tuesday night. We're going to talk about that forecast for Wednesday and the remainder of the week into the weekend. And many of you are experiencing very warm weather across the eastern half of the United States, and it's very cool, chilly, and maybe even wet in some locations across the western half of the United States. So we're talking about a tale of two halves here. But we're going to see some big changes in that weather pattern as we move toward the end of the week. Actually, going to start to see some of that pattern change take shape tomorrow, especially across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and over toward the Northeast. So let's jump into our weather maps right now. Now we are in the first week of October. I think today is October 3rd. So we're going to look at our temperature forecast for at least the first half of October. And for the most part, we are going to see it warmer than average here across the nation's midsection. So from the northern plains down to Texas, the Mexican border, and over the Gulf of Mexico, we're going to see it being warmer than average over here across the Midwest, and then over here across the east and the northeast and the southeast. We're going to see it slightly warmer than average. But meanwhile, in the west, we're going to see some locations like over the Sierra Nevadas and the Great Basin, where it's going to be cooler than average. It's going to be about average for much of the western half of the United States for the beginning section here as we move through the month of October. So we're certainly seeing that warmth over the nation's midsection. We had a very warm weekend where we saw those temperatures in the 80s. Even saw some 90s throughout much of the Midwest as well. So very warm across the Midwest. But we're going to start to see a significant cool down as we move toward the upcoming weekend. So let's take a look at what we're looking at. Our average high temperatures for the month of October. And naturally, it's cold up in the north. We're going to see those 50s across the upper Midwest and the northern Great Lakes toward the northern Rockies. But as you move further to the south through the Midwest and the Central Plains, we see those lows in the 60s and into the mid-Atlantic states, and then through parts of the Rockies and the desert Southwest as well, we see those lows in the 60s. But further south, where we have a little bit higher sun angles, it's still in the 70s and 80s across the southern end of the United States. And right along the Gulf Coast, the Mexican border, we're going to see those temperatures in the 80s typically, and those 80s across the desert Southwest as well. That's what we typically see for the month of October. But as you can see, we have a very dynamic map right now. And in the winter, in the overnight lows, we see those 30s across the northern plains. That's cold. That can be cold enough to snow if you get below 32 degrees. And here across the northern Rockies through Montana and Idaho, we can see those lows in the 20s. And that is definitely cold enough to snow for you folks up there. But you can still see some warmth can hang on down here toward the south, here along the Gulf Coast, the southern plains, Texas, all the way over to Florida. We can see those overnight lows, the 50s, 60s, and some of you might even see a 70 for your overnight lows in the month of October. So not bad if you're further to the south. Now here is what we're looking at as far as our overall pattern for the as we come into our early October, this first 7 days, where we've had a very deep trough over the western half of the United States, and that has brought snow to parts of the Rockies. So some of you, the Rockies, the Cascades, and the highest elevations is seeing some of your first snowfall for the winter, for the season. So we're starting to see some snow and a little bit of snow in the Sierra Nevadas of California as well. We're seeing a little bit of snow out that way. But on the eastern half of the United States, where it's been very warm, we're seeing temperatures in the 80s through the Great Lakes, the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic states, and we've seen those 90s down in the south of Texas and along the Gulf Coast. And we're going to see that pattern kind of change a little bit as we move into Wednesday. We will see that trough lift from the southwest and lift northeast, lift up to the north. So we're going to see it shallow out a little bit, and that mean trough is going to, and I don't mean it's being mean, but a mean trough, that main trough is going to lift up a little bit toward the north central United States. So we're going to start to see those cooler temperatures affect the northern portions of the U.S. and the central U.S., Minnesota, the Dakotas, as well as Montana and Wyoming. We're going to see those cooler temperatures there first, beginning on your Wednesday, but it's going to remain warm across the southern U.S., so Texas and Oklahoma, through the Central Plains and the eastern Great Lakes here. The northeast high pressure area going to remain in a high amplitude mode, as you can see there. So it's going to remain quite warm in those 80s and a couple of 90s as well. So very warm to the east on your Wednesday, and for your Thursday as well. It's going to remain very warm across the northeastern U.S., the mid-Atlantic, and down in the southeast and along the Gulf Coast. We're going to see those temperatures in the 90s, and those 90s will also spread across the desert southwest as well. We're going to see those very warm temperatures across the southwestern U.S., but cooler to the north, and we're going to see that fall return across the Great Lakes and the upper Midwest and the northern plains. So again, states like Montana, Wyoming, North, South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, we're going to see those temperatures and finally see some 60s coming into your afternoon highs as we move through the mid to late part of the week. Now we have a storm system to talk about that is moving across the country, and this is associated with that trough over the west, and we're going to see this frontal boundary shift to the east-northeast, and in doing so, it's going to spread some severe thunderstorms here through the central and northern plains. So from the Dakotas all the way down through Nebraska and down into Kansas and Oklahoma, Texas as well, we're going to see severe thunderstorms moving across the Midwest, and that is going to be producing some dangerous thunderstorms with tornadoes and large hail and gusty winds. And some of those winds can hit 70 miles per hour with those severe storms that's going to be moving through the Midwest. And as we look at our thunderstorm forecast, tonight, overnight tonight, we're going to see some thunderstorms move through the central and southern plains. So West Texas through Oklahoma, Kansas, and maybe even into Nebraska. We're going to be seeing those severe thunderstorms tonight. And those storms are going to be producing a lot of heavy rain. So Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., we're going to see those thunderstorms down here, mainly across Texas and Arkansas. So you can see them across eastern Texas there, near Texarkana and Shreveport, Louisiana. They're going to be headed towards your area. So we're going to see those isolated to scattered thunderstorms across the southern plains tomorrow. And then we're going to see those severe storms tonight across the upper Midwest. So through Kansas here and Nebraska, even to Iowa, we're going to see this line of severe storms about the 9 o'clock hour. Hopefully I can get my video uploaded before this time here, but this is 9 o'clock p.m. Central Daylight Time, and we're going to see that line of severe thunderstorms, and that's going to be producing some very heavy rainfall and possibly even some very large hail. We could see 2.25-2-inch diameter hail falling with some of these severe storms moving across the central plains tonight. And then tonight we're going to see that hail threat, primarily that large hail threat, where we can see those hail in the 2-inch diameter in this region right here. So large hail is definitely going to be a threat across the central plains tonight. And then on your Wednesday, we're going to see those severe thunderstorms taking place across the Oklahoma and Texas border, the Red River Valley here north of Dallas and Wichita Falls, and south of Oklahoma City. You guys are included in that severe thunderstorm forecast and that outlook for tomorrow. And we're going to be looking at those damaging winds, some possible tornadoes, some large hail, and excessive rainfall. You can pick up a couple of inches of rain with some of these severe storms and your Wednesday. So we will have a flood threat in place across the Red River Valley here along the Mississippi, the Kansas and the Oklahoma and Texas state line over to Arkansas and Louisiana, and even parts of southwestern Missouri there in Joplin, where we can see that excessive rain drop up to a couple of inches of rain. So there's definitely a potential for flooding tomorrow across the central and southern plains. So we're going to be monitoring those forecasts. Here's your rainfall amounts that you can expect. 1 to 2 inches for you folks here in Dallas, and we can see 1 inch or so up there in Oklahoma City. But look at the heavy rainfall expected near Fort Smith, Arkansas. 2 to 3 inch potential right in this region here, where it includes Coffeyville, Kansas, and Tulsa, Oklahoma as well, where we can pick up to 3 inches of rain. A lot of you folks are going to be seeing anywhere from a tenth to maybe a half inch of rain from some of those showers and storms. But here across the central plains, north central Texas, south central Oklahoma, where we can see those heaviest rainfall amounts. So as we talk about those temperatures as we head into the weekend, here is your temperature forecast for Saturday. Now that our cool front has shifted to the east and is moving into the northeast and the Great Lakes, that's going to be spreading a lot of rainfall across the New England and Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic states. But we're going to see those temperatures go from the 90s and 80s to the 60s. So we're going to see those 60s, 50s across the Great Lakes, and we're going to see those 50s across the upper Midwest into Minneapolis as well. And look at those temperatures in the 60s across the Central Plains and the Mid-South there in Kansas City, Memphis as well. So even down in the South, we're going to start to see some 60s and temperatures in the lower 70s. Dallas and Atlanta, temperatures in the low 70s. 71 for you folks in Amarillo, Texas. So much more comfortable weather conditions into the weekend, and you will be watching for some scattered showers and thunderstorms along that frontal boundary as it shifts from the central U.S. to the eastern U.S. by the time we get to the weekend there. So then on Sunday, we're going to continue to see those cooler airs. Check out Marquette, 46 degrees for a daytime high. So very cool across the peninsula of Michigan there, up there near Lake Superior. We're going to be seeing those temperatures in the mid-40s, 59 in Minneapolis, and still those temperatures in the upper 50s to lower 60s across the Great Lakes and the Northeast. So very cooler, much cooler across the eastern U.S. and much cooler down across the South and the Southeast as well. So definitely fall weather is moving into the eastern U.S., at least for now. I do see another bump up in temperatures coming later on in the month, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Here is that rainfall expected across the Northeast from Thursday to Sunday from our storm system that's reversing from the Midwest now, would eventually make it to the Northeast as we head into the weekend, and we can see up to about 1 inch of rain in the big cities. But if you're up there in Vermont, New Hampshire, maybe into Maine, some of you folks can see as much as 3 inches. So a lot of rain still in the Northeast with that storm system making its way toward the New England states and headed off towards Nova Scotia by the end of the weekend and into early next week. But in the meantime, you're going to be dealing with some of that heavy rainfall, and New York City can't really take any more rain because you've had a lot of rain for a week straight, and you have dealt with extreme flooding. I mean, disaster proportions as far as that flooding is concerned. Now, as we move to the temperature change, so you can see that big temperature change of all those 80s that we're currently seeing now. But as we move into the weekend, look at all of those 50s and 60s. We're seeing those 80s still up there in Detroit as we head into the, you can see that cooler air coming from the west shifting to the east. And as it goes further, that cooler air shifts further to the east. Look at our warm air shoved off into New England and the Northeast. But we see those temperatures starting to drop across the Ohio Valley down into the Shenandoah area and the Southeast. We're seeing those temperatures start to come down. And then by the time we get to on your Friday, we're going to see those 60s starting to move into the Midwest through the Great Lakes and into the Northeast, even into the South, a bit cooler as well. And we're looking at a very good a big change in the weather pattern as we head into the weekend. Again, Saturday, look at those temperatures in the 50s in the Great Lakes. So Columbus, Chicago, Minneapolis, we'll see highs in the 50s. But if you're in New York City and Boston, you're going to see those temperatures in the 60s. Even down in Atlanta, temperatures in the 60s. Memphis, Dallas, you're going to be the warm spot at 73. But we're going to see those 60s across the Central Plains and into the upper Midwest and the North, up in the high plains as well, where we're going to see those 60s across Rapid City, South Dakota. So again, gonna feel like fall out there, and in the nighttime too. Good sleeping weather coming up for you guys. Lower humidities, temperatures in the 40s in the overnight hours as we get into the weekend. My name is Mr. G. You're a student meteorologist with Mississippi State University. Thank you for supporting me on this journey as I continue my education and continue to practice the craft and hopefully get better at it. Maybe one day you'll see me on a TV station somewhere. That's the plan. Or maybe with the National Weather Service, but we're going to make it do what it do. So I will see you guys all. We won't be here tomorrow because I have a test tomorrow, an exam tomorrow evening to do. So we won't be able to do a video, but we'll do a video for you guys on Thursday, okay? So have a good night and good day tomorrow. And I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye.